My sister hijacked my birthday to humiliate me, so I turned the tables and left her reputation in ruins for everyone to see. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and what happened over the past weekend is still blowing my mind. I've had a rough year, but my birthday was coming up, and I was really looking forward to spending time with my family. It felt like it was going to be a chance for things to get back to normal, maybe reconnect a bit. My younger sister Emma, 26, had been acting strange lately, almost secretive, and I figured she was planning a surprise for me. It wouldn't be the first time she did something like this. I even told my girlfriend Sophie, 27, that Emma was probably up to her usual tricks, trying to make my birthday special. But as the week went on, I started noticing some odd things. Emma was avoiding me, which isn't typical. We're not super close, but we usually talk at least a couple of times a week. I'd walk into the room, and she'd suddenly lower her voice while talking to our parents or end the call altogether. One night, I overheard them whispering about the party, and when I casually asked what they were talking about, they all clammed up. My dad quickly changed the subject, and my mom awkwardly smiled and said, "Oh, nothing you need to worry about." It was weird, but I didn't push. I thought maybe they were just trying to keep it a surprise. Then came the social media hints. Emma posted something on her Instagram story that said, "Can't wait for this weekend. It's going to be epic," with a bunch of party emojis. I saw it and got a bit excited, thinking this was definitely about my birthday. I mean, what else could it be? But then I noticed my mom shared a post about family time this weekend, and my dad posted something similar on Facebook. It all seemed to line up, like they were planning something big for me. By Thursday, I decided to ask my parents if I needed to plan anything for the weekend. My mom just casually said, "We have plans with Emma," without any more details. That's when I started feeling a bit confused. Why wouldn't she mention my birthday? I thought maybe they were just trying to throw me off the scent, so I laughed it off, but the doubt started creeping in. On Friday night, I messaged Emma, jokingly asking if I needed to bring anything to the party. Her response was, "What party?" And then she quickly changed the topic, asking me if I had any plans for the weekend. At this point, I felt a little hurt and a lot confused. It was like she was gaslighting me, making me question if I had misunderstood everything. The family group chat was buzzing with excitement that night. My parents, Emma, even some of my cousins were talking about how they couldn't wait for tomorrow. I jumped in asking, "What's everyone so excited about?" They completely ignored my message, kept talking around me, and I got that sinking feeling in my stomach. It was like I was invisible. Sophie noticed it too. She's usually in on these surprise plans, but even she was left in the dark. She thought it was strange, since she would typically help Emma organize these kinds of things. The morning of my birthday came, and I woke up to a text from Sophie wishing me a happy birthday. But my phone was silent otherwise. Nothing from my family. I thought they might be holding off because they were going to surprise me later in the day. But as the hours passed, I got nothing, no calls, no texts, no messages in the group chat. Sophie and I decided to grab breakfast, and I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe they were planning something for later. We got back home, and Sophie suddenly froze, staring at her phone. She showed me an Instagram story from one of our friends. It was a video from a fancy restaurant downtown. In the video, I could see my entire family, all my friends, and even some extended family members. The caption said, "So glad to be here, celebrating with everyone." My heart dropped. This was clearly a huge party, but I wasn't there. In fact, I hadn't even been invited. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I just stared at the screen, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It was like watching a nightmare unfold in real time. My own sister had planned a massive birthday party for me and didn't bother to invite me. I turned to Sophie, asking if she knew anything about this. She was just as shocked as I was. She immediately tried calling Emma, but no answer. We tried calling my parents, but they didn't pick up either. It felt like I was being shut out by everyone. Desperate for answers, I texted a couple of friends who were at the party. One of them replied, saying, "Oh, I thought you weren't coming." That's when it clicked. My family must have lied and told everyone I couldn't make it. I had no idea why they'd do something like this, but it was obvious they went out of their way to exclude me. Completely lost and hurt, I decided to post about it on Reddit. I wrote everything out in a long post on r off my chest, not really expecting much. Within an hour, the post blew up. People were commenting nonstop, validating my feelings and sharing their own stories of betrayal. The support was overwhelming, but it was also comforting to know that I wasn't crazy for feeling this way. Messages started pouring in from friends who saw the post. They were apologizing, saying they had no idea I wasn't invited. I even got a message from a cousin who said she felt uncomfortable when she realized I wasn't there but assumed there was a good reason for it. It was a small comfort, but it didn't fix the pain of realizing my family chose to celebrate without me. I'm still processing everything, and Sophie and I are planning to confront Emma and my parents tonight. I don't know what they're going to say, but I need answers. I didn't have to wait long before things escalated. That evening, just as Sophie and I were discussing what to do next, there was a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I peered through the peephole and saw Emma standing there. She looked nervous, almost like she knew she'd been caught. I opened the door, and before I could even ask what she was doing there, she started talking. Emma didn't waste time. She started with this half-hearted apology, saying she didn't think I'd want to come. Her tone was casual, like it was no big deal, and I could feel my blood boiling. I reminded her how excited I'd been about my birthday, and that I'd even asked her directly if I needed to bring anything. She just shrugged it off, saying I'd been distant lately, and she thought it was best to give me space. It was such a blatant lie that I almost laughed. Distant? We'd been talking regularly up until a week ago, and she'd been the one acting weird. While I was trying to process her excuse, my parents showed up. They must have followed her here because they walked in right behind her without even knocking. My dad had this look on his face like he was ready to play peacemaker, and my mom was already starting in with her usual, "It's just a big misunderstanding." It felt like I was being ambushed. They didn't even give me a chance to speak before they started explaining how they didn't mean to exclude me and how it was all a mix-up. It was infuriating. I could see right through it. They started using their usual gaslighting tactics. My mom went on about how I always say I don't like big gatherings and how they thought I'd prefer a quiet celebration. My dad nodded along, acting like this was a reasonable explanation. It was like they were trying to rewrite history right in front of me. I've never said that. In fact, I've always been the one who enjoys getting everyone together, especially for birthdays. Sophie stepped in at that point, clearly fed up with what she was hearing. She called them out, asking why they'd go through all the trouble of planning a big party if they really thought I wouldn't want to be there. My parents just stood there looking flustered. Emma snapped. It was like a switch flipped. She suddenly blurted out, "You're not the center of attention for once, and you can't handle it." The words hung in the air like a bomb had just gone off. Everything went silent. My mom's face went pale, and my dad looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Emma had planned this whole thing deliberately, and it wasn't about me being distant or not liking big gatherings. It was about her wanting to be the center of attention, and she didn't want me there to take any of the spotlight. I didn't hold back. I demanded to know why they really left me out, and my mom tried to smooth things over again, mumbling something about it being a mistake, but I wasn't having it. I could see the truth now, and I wasn't going to let them twist it anymore. While we were all standing there, Sophie showed me her phone. She had pulled up another Instagram story from the party. This one was worse. It was a video of Emma's friends making jokes about me not being there. They were openly mocking me, saying things like, "Guess he couldn't handle the fun," and laughing. I felt a wave of hurt, but I didn't say anything. I just turned the screen to Emma so she could see it too. My phone started buzzing with messages from friends who were just realizing I wasn't at the party. Some were apologizing, saying they thought I had chosen not to come. Others were shocked, asking what had happened and why my family would do something like this. It was chaos. Emma's face went from smug to panicked in an instant. She realized she'd gone too far, and there was no talking her way out of this. I told them all I needed space. I announced right there in my living room that I was going no contact, at least for now. My mom started pleading with me not to make any rash decisions, saying we could talk this out. My dad just stood there, looking defeated. Emma, though, started crying. Not the kind of crying where you feel bad for the person. It was the kind of crying you do when you realize you've lost control of the situation. She kept saying she didn't mean for it to go this far, but I wasn't listening anymore. Sophie was amazing through all of this. She helped me pack a bag, suggesting we go stay somewhere else for the weekend to get away from the drama. I agreed, and as we were leaving, my mom tried one last time to stop us. She asked if we could sit down and talk it through. I just shook my head and walked out the door. Just when I thought things were calming down, I got a message from a cousin I haven't talked to in years. She told me she wasn't surprised by what happened and that she had her own stories about Emma's manipulative behavior. It was like a weight lifted off my shoulders, knowing I wasn't alone and seeing through the act. I'm taking a break from social media for now to process everything, but I know I have a big decision to make about my relationship with my family moving forward. This whole experience has been eye-opening, and I don't think things will ever be the same again. After leaving my family's ambush at my apartment, I decided to stick with my decision to go no contact for a while. I needed time to breathe, and Sophie was fully on board. We packed up and spent the weekend at a quiet Airbnb outside the city. I ignored all the buzzing from my phone. It was like a mini vacation, giving me space to process what had happened. I turned off notifications from the family group chat and muted everyone for a few days. When I finally checked my phone, it was like opening a floodgate. There were dozens of missed calls and texts, mostly from my mom and Emma. The messages were all over the place, guilt-tripping ones from my mom, saying things like, "This isn't how family should behave, and I can't believe you're doing this to us." Emma's messages, on the other hand, were aggressive. She called me selfish and accused me of overreacting. It was clear they were in full damage control mode. Out of nowhere, I got a call from one of my close friends who had been at the party. I hesitated but decided to pick up. He sounded genuinely apologetic. He told me he had no idea I wasn't invited, and that Emma had told everyone I chose not to come because I didn't like the group she invited. Hearing that made my blood boil. It wasn't just that she excluded me. She also lied to everyone about why I wasn't there. I thanked him for letting me know, but it added another layer of betrayal. My own family was spreading lies to cover their tracks. When I finally decided to check the family group chat, it was a dumpster fire. There were passive-aggressive comments from my mom like, "I hope you're happy with all this drama you're creating." Emma was going on a rant about how she couldn't believe I'd take this so far, calling me immature. The most surprising thing was my dad's silence. He usually tries to keep the peace, but he hadn't said a single word. It felt like he was distancing himself from the whole mess. Sophie, being the detective she is, decided to do some digging. She scrolled through Emma's Instagram and found more posts from the party. In one of the videos, a family friend made a joke about me being too sensitive and said something like, "That's why he wasn't invited, he's such a buzzkill." It was humiliating to see people who I thought were close to me laughing at my expense. It was clear Emma had spun this narrative to make me look like the problem. Emma didn't stop there. She sent me a private message, acting all high and mighty. She said she didn't invite me because she wanted to give me a break from the family drama. It was mind-blowing. She was still trying to twist the situation, acting like she was doing me a favor by excluding me. It was peak gaslighting, and I didn't even bother responding. Later that day, I got a call from my cousin Laura. We haven't been close in years, so it was surprising to hear from her. She wasn't invited to the party either, and it turns out she's had her own issues with Emma in the past. Laura told me that Emma has a history of stirring up drama and excluding people she feels threatened by. It was like a light bulb went off. This wasn't just a one-off thing, it was part of a pattern. Laura hinted that there might be more going on behind the scenes, but didn't give details. We ended up talking for over an hour, bonding over our shared experiences. My mom sent me a long, guilt-tripping message later that evening, insisting we have a family meeting to resolve this misunderstanding. It felt like a trap, but I agreed to go. I wanted to confront Emma face-to-face and get the full story. Sophie was worried and offered to come along for support, but I told her I needed to handle this on my own. When I arrived at my parents' house, the atmosphere was tense. My mom looked nervous, and Emma was sitting on the couch with a smug smile. My dad was there too, but he stayed quiet, sitting in the corner like he didn't want to get involved. Emma wasted no time, launching into a rehearsed speech. She claimed she didn't realize I'd be upset and thought I preferred smaller celebrations. She blamed my reaction on my sensitivity, trying to paint me as the bad guy. I didn't let her finish. I pulled out my phone and showed the screenshots of the messages I received from friends and the Instagram post Sophie found. I asked her directly why she lied to everyone about me not wanting to be there. She didn't have an answer. For the first time, she looked caught off guard, cornered. Emma finally cracked. She admitted that she didn't invite me on purpose. She confessed that she's been feeling overshadowed by me lately and wanted to have a party where she was the center of attention. My parents looked stunned, clearly not expecting her to admit it. My mom started crying, saying she just wanted us to get along, but I wasn't interested in their excuses anymore. I stood up and told them I was done. I walked out, vowing to cut contact indefinitely. I left them sitting there, speechless, as I closed the door behind me. Sophie was incredible throughout all of this. She never once doubted my decision and offered to help me get away from the chaos for a while. She suggested we take a short trip, just to clear our minds and get some space. We booked a last-minute getaway and spent a few days hiking, exploring, and avoiding our phones as much as possible. It was exactly what I needed, a chance to breathe without the constant pressure from my family. When we got back, the family group chat was on fire. My mom had sent a barrage of messages, accusing me of tearing the family apart. She kept saying things like, "We've always been a close family, and now look what you've done." Emma, predictably, had taken to social media. She was posting these cryptic stories about how she was the victim of family drama and how she was trying to stay strong despite being betrayed by someone she loved. It was all so manipulative, but it was exactly what I expected from her. She was playing the victim card hard. Then I got an email from Emma. It was supposedly an apology, but it was filled with backhanded comments and excuses. She claimed she didn't mean to hurt me, but also said that I was too sensitive and always take things too seriously. It was classic Emma, making herself look like the good guy while blaming me for everything. I didn't respond. I just forwarded it to Sophie, who read it and rolled her eyes. A few days later, I got a message from an aunt I hadn't spoken to in years. She had seen my Reddit post. Apparently, it had gone viral enough that even distant family members were noticing. She told me she wasn't surprised by what happened, and that she'd had her own experiences with my parents and Emma's manipulative behavior. It was validating to hear, especially from someone who had cut ties with the family a long time ago. She shared stories about how my mom had always favored Emma, and how she'd been pushed out of the family circle for standing up to it. It was like getting a peek behind the curtain, and it made everything make even more sense. Things took a turn when Laura, my cousin who wasn't invited to the party either, called me again. She sounded serious and told me she had something important to share. Apparently, there was a trust fund set up by our late grandmother that I had never known about. It was supposed to be split evenly between me and Emma, but recently, my parents had made changes that heavily favored Emma. Laura said she'd heard about it through her mom, who was shocked by how blatantly unfair it was. My head was spinning. I had no idea this trust fund even existed, let alone that it had been altered behind my back. I decided it was time to get professional advice. Sophie and I made an appointment with a lawyer to go over what Laura had told me. The lawyer looked over the details and immediately said something seemed off. The changes to the trust fund were made without my knowledge, and it looked suspicious, especially since they were done so recently. He advised me to pursue legal action if I wanted to contest it. It was like opening a can of worms, but I couldn't ignore it now. I confronted my parents over the phone. My mom tried to act clueless, pretending she had no idea what I was talking about. My dad, as usual, stayed quiet, but when he did speak, he claimed he didn't know the details. It was a pathetic attempt to cover themselves, and I realized they were both lying. I gave them an ultimatum. Either they explain why they made these changes, or I was taking it to court. They begged me not to escalate things, saying it would tear the family apart even more, but I wasn't backing down. Emma found out about the potential legal action pretty quickly, and it set her off. She had a meltdown on social media, accusing me of ruining her life and being greedy. It was the most dramatic thing I've ever seen. She posted a long rant about how she had always been there for me and how I was now trying to take what's hers. It was like watching a train wreck in real time. People started commenting, calling her out for her lies, and some even linked my Reddit post in the comments. It was a mess. I officially filed the paperwork to contest the trust fund changes. My parents were served with legal notices, and I could feel the tension rising. This was it. The family drama had reached a boiling point, and there was no turning back now. There's a major confrontation coming. I can feel it. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I'm ready for it. For once, I'm not the one running from the fight. I officially filed the paperwork to contest the changes made to the trust fund, and once my parents were served with legal notices, the reaction was immediate. It was like setting off a bomb in the middle of my family. My mom blew up my phone with messages, accusing me of betraying the family. My dad, true to form, kept silent. Emma, on the other hand, went full scorched earth mode on social media. She posted this long, emotional rant on Facebook, accusing me of destroying the family over money. She painted herself as the victim, claiming she was forced to change the trust fund because I was irresponsible and couldn't be trusted with the money. The blatant lies were almost laughable, but I made sure to screenshot everything. I knew these posts would come in handy. While Emma was busy playing the victim online, Sophie was doing her own detective work. She managed to get access to some of the financial records tied to the trust fund, and what she found was shocking. Over the past 2 years, there had been a series of large payments made from the trust fund directly to Emma's personal bank account. It was clear she'd been siphoning off money bit by bit. Sophie compiled everything and sent it to me. I felt a wave of anger, but I also knew we had solid evidence now. This wasn't just a case of my parents favoring Emma. She'd been actively stealing from our shared inheritance. I took everything to my lawyer, who was thrilled with what we had. He said we could use the social media posts, along with the financial records, to build a strong case. He started putting together a strategy. focusing on Emma's misuse of the funds and the sudden changes my parents made to the trust without my knowledge. It felt like we finally had the upper hand, and I was ready to see this through. The family drama only got worse from there. My decision to go legal caused a deep divide. My mom was furious, accusing me of tearing the family apart. She even called a few relatives, trying to rally them against me. It didn't work, though. Laura, my cousin, and my estranged aunt openly supported me, sharing their own stories of Emma's manipulation. It was a relief to see that some people saw through the act, but it also made me realize just how far this had gone. Then, out of nowhere, my parents showed up at my apartment. They didn't call ahead or text, they just knocked on the door, with Emma in tow. It felt like an intervention. I knew this was going to be ugly, but I let them in. I figured this might be my chance to confront them all face to face. As soon as they stepped inside, my mom launched into a tirade. She accused me of being ungrateful and selfish. Emma was crying, putting on this whole act about how she only changed the trust fund because I was unstable and didn't deserve the money. I could tell it was all rehearsed, but I stayed calm. I pulled out the financial records Sophie had found and laid them on the table. My mom stopped mid-rant, and my dad's face went white. I told them this wasn't about me being ungrateful. It was about Emma stealing from the trust fund. Emma froze. For a moment, the whole room was silent. Then she broke down, admitting she used the trust fund money to cover her debts and a failed business venture. My parents looked stunned, clearly not expecting this. My mom tried to speak, but I cut her off. I demanded to know why they went along with the changes in the first place. My dad, looking defeated, finally admitted they altered the trust fund because they believed Emma was the more responsible child. My mom tried to justify it, saying, "We were just trying to protect the family." It was a slap in the face, but I kept my composure. I told them I wasn't dropping the case. Their actions had consequences, and I was done being manipulated. My mom broke down in tears, begging me to reconsider, while Emma stormed out of the apartment, screaming that I had ruined her life. It was a mess, but I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time, I wasn't backing down. Emma's meltdown didn't end there. She went on another social media rant, this time calling me greedy and accusing me of trying to take everything from her. But the tide had turned. My Reddit post had gone viral again, and people were sharing it all over. Public opinion started shifting against Emma. Comments poured in, calling her out for her selfishness and lies. It was a small victory, but it felt good to see people finally seeing through her act. A few days later, my lawyer called with an update. He said the evidence we had was strong enough to force a settlement. My parents' lawyer reached out with an offer. They proposed splitting the trust fund evenly as originally intended, but there was a catch. They wanted me to sign a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, promising to cut all public ties with the family drama and never speak about it again. Sophie and I went out for a quiet dinner to celebrate the small win, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being cornered. She reassured me, saying I was doing the right thing by standing up for myself. It was the first time in weeks I felt hopeful about the future. After I shared the settlement offer on Reddit, the response was immediate and clear. Everyone advised me against signing the NDA. Hundreds of comments rolled in, urging me not to let my family off the hook. The consensus was that if I agreed to their terms, it would mean silencing the truth and letting them control the narrative. The support was overwhelming, and it gave me the push I needed. I decided then and there I wasn't going to sign it. The next morning, I called my lawyer and told him my decision. He was on board, confident that we had a strong case. I made it clear I wanted the original terms of the trust fund restored without any conditions, and I was ready to take this to court if needed. My lawyer assured me we were well prepared, and we started gearing up for the hearing. As the court date approached, I spent hours going over my testimony. Sophie was incredible, helping me practice and keeping me calm. We went over every detail, from the financial records Sophie found to the social media posts where Emma painted herself as the victim. The nerves were there, but with Sophie's support, I felt ready. The day of the hearing came, and the courtroom was buzzing with tension. As I walked in, I spotted a familiar face in the crowd, my estranged aunt, the one who had reached out after my story went viral. I hadn't expected her to show up, but when she stepped forward as a surprise witness, I realized why she was there. She testified about the long history of manipulation and favoritism in the family. Her words were powerful, and I could see the shock on my parents' faces. It was a huge boost to my case. Then it was my turn. I took the stand and laid everything out. I shared the financial records showing Emma's misuse of the trust fund, the screenshots of her lies on social media, and the story of how my parents changed the trust behind my back. The courtroom was silent as I spoke, everyone hanging on every word. The judge reviewed the evidence, and I could see him taking it all in. It felt like the truth was finally being heard. When it was Emma's turn to testify, things took a dramatic turn. She started off defensive, but under pressure from the lawyer's questions, she cracked. Emma broke down and admitted that she had used the trust fund money to cover her own debts and a failed business venture. She tried to blame me, saying that I had made her look bad, but her erratic behavior only made things worse for her. The judge watched her meltdown with a stern expression, and I could tell the tide had turned completely. The judge's ruling came swiftly. He decided in my favor, restoring the original terms of the trust fund. He also ordered Emma to repay the money she had taken. The sense of relief I felt was immense, though it was bittersweet. This victory meant acknowledging just how deep the betrayal ran, and there was no going back. My parents looked devastated as the ruling was read. They tried to approach me outside the courtroom, but I didn't stop to talk. I just walked away, feeling a sense of closure I hadn't expected. Sophie met me at the exit and hugged me tightly. She told me how proud she was of me for standing my ground. It was a small moment, but it meant everything. I realized then how lucky I was to have her by my side through all of this. We decided to leave the courthouse and go for a quiet dinner, just the two of us. It felt like the first step towards a new chapter. A few days after the hearing, I received an unexpected message from my dad. It was a long, heartfelt apology. He acknowledged the mistakes they had made and expressed regret for the way things turned out. I read it twice, but in the end, I decided not to respond. It felt too late for reconciliation. The damage was done, and I needed to move forward. Sophie and I made a big decision shortly after. We were going to move to a new city for a fresh start. We found a small apartment and spent the next few weeks setting up our new place. It was exciting, building something new together, away from all the family drama. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders as we unpacked boxes and made plans for our future. I decided to go fully no contact with my family. I blocked them on all social media and deleted their numbers from my phone. It was hard, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I realized that true healing would only come with distance, and I was ready to put my own well-being first for once. As I sat on our new balcony with Sophie, watching the sunset over the city skyline, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I reflected on everything that had happened, the betrayal, the legal battle, the moments of doubt. But I also thought about the growth, the strength I found, and the support from the Reddit community that helped me through it all. I decided it was time to take a break from social media and focus on this new life Sophie and I were building together. Here's to a fresh start and a hopeful future. And with that, I closed my laptop, took Sophie's hand, and we looked out at the city together, ready for whatever came next.